Most killers hide in the darkness, their crimes a dirty secret they carry to the grave. But some crave the spotlight. They don't just commit murder, they orchestrate it, treating homicide like a dark art and the investigation like a twisted game. They're the phantoms who relish taunting the very people sworn to catch them. They leave behind a trail of pain, mocking letters, and cryptic puzzles that turn a manhunt into a public spectacle. They make entire cities their unwilling audience, forcing everyone to live inside their nightmare. These aren't just cold cases. They're calculated attacks on our sense of order and safety. They are the stories of killers who vanished into thin air and of monsters who hid in plain sight for decades, all while playing a deadly game with law enforcement and the public. Today, we're exploring 3 of history's most terrifying case files. We'll journey to the gaslit alleys of Victorian London, walk the sun-drenched streets of 1960s California, and visit the quiet, unsuspecting suburbs of Middle America. In each place, a killer seized the public's imagination, not just for the brutality of their crimes, but for the chilling way they announced themselves to the world, leaving behind little more than enduring mysteries and the haunting echo of their own voices. The late 1960s in Northern California was a time of huge cultural shifts, an era of peace, love, and the summer of love. But under all that counterculture optimism, a darkness was brewing. A terror was about to hit the San Francisco Bay Area, one that would be defined not just by violence, but by a chilling intellectual evil. It all began on a desolate lover's lane. On the night of December 20th, 1968, on Lake Herman Road, high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were on their first date. They parked their car in a gravel turnout, a popular spot for local teens. Around 11 p.m., another car pulled up. A man got out and, in a swift, merciless attack, shot David once in the head and Betty Lou 5 times in the back as she tried to run. The attack was brutal, senseless, and had no clear motive. For 7 long months, the case went cold, leaving the community of Vallejo in a state of quiet, simmering fear. Then, on July 4th, 1969, the killer struck again. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were parked at Blue Rock Springs Park, just a few miles from the first crime scene. A car pulled in behind them, its headlights blinding them. The driver approached their window with a flashlight and, without a word, opened fire, emptying his 9mm pistol into the car. After he turned to walk away, he heard Michael groan in pain. He came back and fired 2 more shots at each of them before calmly driving off. Less than an hour later, the Vallejo Police Department got a call. The voice on the other end was calm, monotone, and chillingly composed. "I wish to report a double murder," he said. "If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." This was the killer's first direct contact, but it was only the beginning. On August 1st, 1969, 3 major newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald, each received a handwritten letter. The letters had details only the killer could know, proving they were real. But even more terrifying, each letter contained one part of a 3-part, 408-symbol cryptogram. The author took credit for the attacks and issued a chilling ultimatum: publish the cipher on the front page, or he would cruise around all weekend, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again. He signed off not with a name, but with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it. The newspapers complied. A week later, a high school teacher and his wife, Donald and Betty Harden, cracked the code. The world held its breath, hoping for a name, a clue, a reason. What they got was a glimpse into the mind of a monster. The decoded message was a rambling, misspelled tirade. It read, in part, "I like killing people because ITER is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill." He rambled on about collecting slaves for the afterlife. There was no name, no motive beyond a pure lust for violence. On August 4th, another letter arrived at the Examiner. It began with the haunting salutation that would become his trademark. "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." And just like that, he had given himself a name. The mystery now had a persona. The Zodiac reveled in the media attention, his ego fueled by the very fear he was creating. His campaign of terror continued. On September 27, 1969, he attacked college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard as they picnicked at Lake Berryessa. This time, the attack was pure theater. A man approached them wearing a bizarre executioner-style hood and a bib decorated with his cross-circle symbol. He claimed to be an escaped convict, tied them up, and then brutally stabbed them both, leaving them for dead. Before he left, he walked over to Brian's car and drew his symbol on the door, along with the dates of his previous attacks. Cecilia Shepard later died from her injuries. Just 2 weeks later, on October 11th, the Zodiac claimed his final confirmed victim. San Francisco cab driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger who directed him to the wealthy Presidio Heights neighborhood. There, the man shot him in the head, took his wallet and keys, and tore off a piece of his blood-soaked shirt. Incredibly, responding officers passed a man matching the killer's description walking away. But a dispatcher's error had described the suspect as a black male, not a white male. It was a near miss, a moment that could have ended the nightmare. But the Zodiac simply melted back into the night. 3 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter. Inside was the proof, a bloody piece of Paul Stein's shirt. The Zodiac was openly mocking them. He complained about how the police almost caught him and ended with a new threat aimed at children. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. The city was paralyzed with fear. For weeks, police cruisers, escorted school buses and armed guards stood watch at bus stops. The Zodiac continued to send letters and ciphers for years, taunting the police and the public, though his string of confirmed murders had ended. His most infamous puzzle, the 340-character cipher known as Z340, arrived in November 1969. It would remain unsolved for 51 years, a silent, cryptic monument to his elusiveness. It wasn't until December 2020 that a team of private citizens finally cracked it. The message was another chilling, self-aggrandizing rant. I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because IT will send me to paradise all the sooner. Yet again, no name, no real clue to his identity. Countless suspects have been investigated. The most famous was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester, who owned a Zodiac brand watch and allegedly made incriminating statements. But his DNA and handwriting never matched the evidence. More recently, independent investigators have pointed to Gary Francis Post, a house painter who died in 2018. But law enforcement has remained skeptical. To this day, the Zodiac killer has never been officially identified. He claimed to have killed as many as 37 people, though only 5 are confirmed. He simply stopped writing and vanished, leaving behind a legacy of terror and one of the most compelling and frustrating unsolved mysteries in American history. He became a ghost who played a deadly game, won, and then disappeared from the board. Our next case starts with a chillingly similar pattern. A killer who taunted authorities and then vanished. But this time, the silence would be broken, and the phantom would be unmasked in the most shocking way imaginable. Our story takes us to Wichita, Kansas, a city in the heart of America known for its quiet, family-oriented neighborhoods. In 1974, that peace was shattered by a monster who gave himself a name that perfectly described his brutal craft. On the morning of January 15, 1974, a nightmare began. 15-year-old Charlie Otero came home from school to find an unthinkable scene of horror. Inside his family's home were the bodies of his parents, Joseph and Julie Otero, and his 2 younger siblings, 9-year-old Joseph Jr. and 11-year-old Josephine. They had been bound and brutally strangled. The sheer savagery of the crime sent a wave of terror through Wichita. Police had no suspects and no motive. The killer, though, couldn't stay quiet. That October, a letter showed up at the Wichita Eagle newspaper, tucked inside a library book. It took credit for the Otero family murders, giving details only the killer could know. But it was the signature that would forever brand him in the public's mind. He gave himself a name, a chilling acronym for his method, BTK, for bind, torture, kill. Like the Zodiac, he had created his own monstrous persona. BTK's reign of terror had started. Over the next few years, he struck periodically, stalking his victims with meticulous care. He was a patient predator, often watching his targets for weeks. learning their routines before breaking into their homes to wait. He killed Catherine Bright in 1974, Shirley Vian in 1977, and Nancy Fox later that same year. After each murder, he'd often reach out, sending taunting letters to the police and local TV stations. He craved recognition for his work. He once called the police himself to report one of his murders, just as the Zodiac had done. In another letter, he sent a poem titled, "Oh, Death to Nancy," a grotesque tribute to his victim. He was a phantom who created deep-seated pee.